I love you.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic, and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. Happy Thanksgiving and to everybody in Chicago and everybody around the world right now. I hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving weekend and an amazing Thanksgiving overall. I know yesterday was an absolute blast. I had a great time with some great friends and some great family. It was an absolute blast. Again, I'm going to reiterate that. It was an amazing week, and I can't wait to kick off next week. Next week's hopefully going to be even better. We got primetime playoffs in the football league that I'm playing in with my boy Kevin Lapka of 670 The Score. Got to give some love to him. James Morgan and company. Got to give some love to my dogs. But we got a great show for you guys tonight. I'm excited about this one. We're going to have some Cubs talk. We're talking some winter baseball. I'm excited to get into it, man. Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto. You got guys like Bichette getting into the conversation for the Chicago Cubs. Didn't really think that was even going to be a legitimate conversation even a year ago or even 6 months ago, nonetheless. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun, nonetheless. I appreciate everybody who tuned in today. If you haven't hit that follow button already, definitely smack it for us. We just hit 14.1 thousand followers on TikTok, which is absolutely crazy. You can check us out over there at theshy.kid. But until then, man, let's get into it. Let's talk some Chicago Cubs baseball because the rumors, man, the rumors are getting hotter than ever. I mean, it is absolutely insane right now in Wrigley Field and Winter Wonderland, if you haven't seen that yet. But the Shohei Ohtani rumors continue to rise in Chicago, and it's just been an absolute blast, man. It has been an absolute blast. So, I mean, what are we thinking? What are we thinking? What's the realistic possibilities that a guy like Shohei Ohtani ends up in a Chicago Cubs uniform sometime this year? You know, it's going to come down to a lot of things. And I think at the end of the day, winning is going to be the biggest staple for that. Not everybody thinks this, of course. You know, maybe there's a shot he stays with the Los Angeles Angels, but I see no way. I see no way that that's even a possibility or that's even a conversation that he's willing to stay with the Los Angeles Angels organization. I think it's just over. I truly do. But with that being said, man, you know, what are the realistic opportunities for the Chicago Cubs to acquire somebody like him? I think the best thing that could have happened for the Cubs in acquiring a guy like Shohei Ohtani was, like I said, like I've been saying the last few weeks, SEAL Team 6, Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins swooping in the middle of the night and acquiring a guy like Craig Counsell to be the new manager of the Chicago Cubs for years to come. That's a house staple move. That is something that you needed to do in order to show Shohei Ohtani, hey, not only is Chicago an amazing market, not only do we have a solid roster and a great farm system, but we are managed by some of the best minds in baseball. And I think that was one of the more important things right there. What do you, respectfully to David Ross, what are you supposed to pitch to Shohei Ohtani that we have a first-time manager who hasn't had a lot of success? He's already dealt with several different managers throughout the Angels organization, one being Joe Madden. So obviously winning is important. So I think it's going to come down to a lot of things. I think the pillars of what we have right now are a great staple for a guy like Shohei Ohtani. And if that makes sense, because, you know, when you look at what he had, and obviously the Cubs being the runner-up team to run again, get him in 2017, 2018, it takes a lot to get a guy like that. But it just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't good enough. We weren't able to get him. We had Rizzo, we had Bryant, we had Baez, we had Lester still, we had all these other dogs. You know, the only thing we didn't have was a DH at the time and a spot for him in this rotation, according to Theo Epstein. But and Joe Madden. But at this point in time, the Chicago Cubs now have the universal DH along with the rest of the National League. I think that makes the window 10 times more open for National League teams such as the Los Angeles Dodgers, Chicago Cubs, the New York Mets, whatever it may be. But when you look at the Cubs and you look at the staple that they're able to bring, I think one of the more exciting things when you talk about a guy like Shohei Ohtani is who's going to be alongside him. You look at a guy this year who, after having Tommy John surgery, didn't have a single at-bat the majority of September and all of October and November. And he still led the league in home runs. I mean, that's crazy to me. That is absolutely crazy to me. He had 44 home runs on the year. He had 304 batting average with a 1.066 OPS and 95 RBIs. So we understand that he's not going to pitch in 2024. And that's completely okay. To be the DH of this team or even play in the outfield, say we lose a guy like we lose a guy like Cody Bellinger, that's perfectly okay for a guy like Shohei Ohtani to come in. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of him in the outfield anyways because of that Tommy John surgery. But we do understand that there will be a point during the season to where he is going to start getting a lot more work and he's going to start being able to be playing the outfield again, getting back into bullpens, et cetera, et cetera. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. The Cubs are killing for a power bat right now. The best power bat I think we had throughout the 2023 season, you could say it was Christopher Morel, you could say it was Cody Bellinger, but nonetheless, you couldn't name 3 or 4 guys that you could see pumping out over 25 home runs at a consistent basis. So to have Shohei Ohtani, one of the best phenom bats in all of baseball, and one of the better pitchers in all of baseball, had one of the lowest ERAs, had some of the best stat lines in all of baseball this year from a pitching perspective and a hitting perspective. So I think there's a lot to be said. There's a lot that's going to be going on. It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun. And when you look at it for what it is, I say you see guys like Dansby Swanson. You see guys like Young Ohms. You see guys like Christopher Morel. You see guys like Nico Horner. The list goes on. Ian Happ, Justin Steele. We can do this all day. You see a roster that's ready to win now. You see a roster that's content. You see a roster that plays well together. It's an amazing, amazing atmosphere between this locker room. We had a very strange locker room in the Frank Schwindel, Patrick Wisdom era to where you really didn't know who was in, who wasn't, who's bought in, who's not. There's a lot of different questions, but all of these guys seem to be bought in. And then you look at the farm system, one of the top farm systems in all of baseball, and I cannot reiterate that enough. If we are not one, we are two. And that's just what it is at the end of the day. P. Crow Armstrong, Kate Horton, Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara, Ben Brown, Matt Shaw, Moises Balestros. You have Jackson Ferris, James Triantos, Jordan Wicks, B.J. Murray. You have Matt Mervis, and the list goes on of just amazing acquisitions. You still have a guy like Christian Hernandez, who I still think is going to be an absolute monster. But you have all of these guys. On top of that, Jordan Wicks and company that are already in the rotation currently. Miguel Amaya, we can do this all day. You guys already know what's going on. But the reality is you see something like that and you see a home. You see a place to where, okay, they have the farm system of the future. They already have veterans and World Series champions and prestigious award-winning players on the field now. What's better than that? What's better than that than to come to Chicago? So personally, myself, I think bringing in a guy like Shohei changes everything. Now, are we going to be able to retain Cody Bellinger if we get a guy like Shohei Ohtani? Absolutely not. And if somehow, some way we're able to do so, my hat is off to Carter Hawkins and Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts as well for just spending that amount of money. But I doubt that's a realistic possibility, and that's not a hot take. That everybody will tell you that. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. One of the best athletes we've ever seen grace this world, nonetheless, a baseball diamond instead of Cody Bellinger. I'm completely content with that. No disrespect to Cody Bellinger, but give me Shohei Ohtani. But yeah, man, we love that news. We love that news. We love what we're hearing. We think the Cubs are going to be front runners again. We were the second option back in 2017, 2018. So if the Angels are out of the picture, why not go back to the team you wanted to go to beforehand? The only reason you couldn't, we didn't have a spot in the rotation. Like I said, we didn't have a universal DH. Now you have all of those things, a better roster, a better foundation, a better farm system, a better coaching staff, a better front office. I mean, it's better front office is a stretch, but, a competent front office. I love what we're seeing. I think we're going to continue to see great things. I think the rumors of Shohei Ohtani and for the Chicago Cubs organization have only begun. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what could potentially happen. I think there's a lot of different room for growth. There's a lot of different conversations that could be had. The last point that I found the most interesting, the rumors going around that if any organization leaks that they've had conversations with Shohei Ohtani, it will factor into his decision. And that's a big trust thing. I think at the end of the day, if Shohei Ohtani walks into Wrigleyville, somebody's going to report it. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Somebody in the comments, by the way, just said, what do you think about picking up Mike Trout? Listen, and I mean this with all respect, because Mike Trout is one of my, obviously, and should be one of everybody's favorite players in the league to grow up watching. But at this point in his career, with the back injuries and the issues he's had throughout the last couple of years, just staying healthy and staying on the field, along with age, along with the contract, as much as I would love Mike Trout, I think giving up the prospects that you're going to have to give up for arguably the greatest player to ever play baseball, it is just way too much. But the next conversation, before we get into the bullpen, because we're definitely going to be talking bullpen tonight as well, Bo Bichette has been linked to the Chicago Cubs, and rumors are speculating that they could potentially trade him at any point during this offseason. It's going to be interesting, though. You know, he signed a 3-year deal worth, $33 million or something like that way back when. But I really don't see this realistically happening for the Toronto Blue Jays. If anything, I think they move on from a guy like Vladdy. Bo Bichette has been absolutely phenomenal. He batted .299, or he has a .299 career batting average. He batted over 300 last year with 20 home runs. Gold Glove caliber defense at shortstop. I mean, this is a guy that you want on your organization. This is a guy that you could say, hey, man, he's going to be something special. Now, his OPS is a .814. He had 73 RBIs last year with 20 home runs and a .306 batting average, like I mentioned. But, you know, when you see a 25-year-old like this, you don't give up on a guy like that. Now, would I love him to be on the Cubs for the next 2 years until that contract runs up? Of course, because I see what we have in the farm system. I see what we have in the pipeline. I love what James Giantos was able to do, and he's been a guest of the show, and we're going to have him on very soon to talk about how he did. He won Arizona Fall League Player of the Year. You have a guy like BJ Murray, who was in the All Futures game along with Pete Crow Armstrong, 2 third basemen that I believe could be pillars for the Chicago Cubs organization moving forward. I've been seeing James a little bit more at second, but we know he can play the third base position. And I think, you know, when you have that conversation, you have to say Bo Bichette is playing third base. There's no way around it. I mean, you have Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson up the middle, and they both won a Gold Glove in 2023. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I don't see that. They're both inked this team for the next 5+ years. I don't see a move like this being made without the ideal world where Bo Bichette is playing in third base. So, but on top of that, I want to make a point, because we're not going to talk about this too long. We're going to continue. We're going to talk about more free agents, Yamamoto, the bullpen, Pete Alonso, et cetera, et cetera. But with Bo Bichette potentially going to the Chicago Cubs, here's why I'm against it. I love Bo Bichette. One, I don't think he wants to play third base. Point blank, period. At this point in his career, he is a phenomenal defensive shortstop, and I think he is going to stay that way. But with that being said, on top of that, the prospects you're going to have to give up for a guy who has a career .299 batting average. He is a shortstop. He is one of the faces of the franchise of the Toronto Blue Jays. This is not going to be a walk in the park in negotiations. You are going to have to give up 1 or 2 top 5, top 10 prospects. And that's just really what it is. There's no way around that. Maybe you can sneak in a Christopher Morel and give up 1 top prospect instead of 2, but still, nonetheless, I just don't see that realistically being a possibility. And I think there's an argument that can be made that it might do us more harm than good when you look at the prospects that we actually have on this organization. Guys like BJ Murray and James Trianto still being a couple years away, 1 to 2, 3 years away. But with that being said, there is a guy in free agency that we can go after right now that I wouldn't mind. Now, I'm not against Nick Madrigal, Jamer Candelario still being retained and being a part of this organization moving forward at third base. I just would prefer a better defensive third baseman, and I think that's Matt Chapman. I think if you want a bridge gap third baseman, instead of trading for a 25-year-old who's going to cost the world and then likely not be able to be retained, especially if you go after a guy like Ohtani, it's going to come down to, at the end of the day, what you want to do in the near future. And I think they would rather keep on guys like Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara. You obviously look at guys like PCA, Kate Horton, Ben Brown, etc., Moises Balestros, and Miguel Amaya. I mean, we could do this all day. But to have that happen, and give up top prospects when there's a guy like Matt Chapman who's won several Gold Gloves and a Platinum Gold Glove. You have to have that real reality check of, hey man, this guy's available. He's older. He's 30 years old as of right now. Last season he wasn't the greatest. We're looking at a guy with a OBP of 330, a slug of 424, an OPS of 755, but he had 17 home runs, a 240 batting average, and Gold Glove defense at third base. I love what we already have on this organization. If you're going to bring in somebody like Shohei Ohtani and then pair somebody else up like Matt Chapman, I think you have an amazing bridge gap there. And I think that's really what I would do if I were them moving forward. I love the conversation of Bo Bichette potentially being a Chicago Cub. He is one of my favorite young players in the league today. He has been for years. But for what they're going to demand, in my personal opinion, I just think does more harm than good, especially when you have him playing third base. Is he going to be happy? Is he going to want to stay here after his contract is up in 2 years? Who knows? So yeah, Matt Chapman would be my ideal third baseman to go after this offseason. I'm not really big on moving Bo Bichette to third. And honestly, I don't even think the Toronto Blue Jays realistically move on from him. I think they'd be foolish. That's just my personal opinion. But reading a couple comments really quickly, though, because I definitely want to get into them. Thoughts on bringing Sosa back to Wrigley? I love that one. I'd love Sammy to get the respect that he deserved. I see how the Cardinals still appreciate a guy like Mark McGwire. I understand Sammy had his issues. I understand there's so many speculations, but at the end of the day, man, I mean, he had Wrigley rocking when nobody could. So, I mean, you got to give him his love. Now, are you going to give him a statue or a flag on the flagpole? Probably not. You know what I mean? But I think at the end of the day, you have to have that real conversation of, you got to recognize the guys who have been there for you. So, yeah, it's just really where I'm at with that. A couple other comments that we got so far. Let me keep going. We would have the best infield in the league if we got Chapman. And you know what? So like, hear me out, right? So if you get a guy like Matt Chapman and you miss out on a guy like Shohei Ohtani, then you can bring in a guy like Cody Bellinger. If you have Cody Bellinger at first base, Matt Chapman at third, Nico and Dansby up the middle, and then you have Miguel Amaya or Yan Gomes at the plate behind the dish, I mean, who's stopping us? You know what I mean? Pico Armstrong in center field. You have Ian Happ in left field. You have Seiya Suzuki in right. I mean, and potentially Kevin Alcantara at some point during the season in right. I mean, you have a phenomenal lineup right there of defensive gems. You have several Gold Glove candidates and Gold Glove winners. But yeah, man, that's really where I'm at. But to get into the majority of free agency, I did just hear that Yamamoto, the Japanese pitching star, said that he would like to go to an organization that already has set Japanese players. And us, baby. I looked right at Seiya and I said, I love you, baby. Thank you. You're already here. You're already a part of the organization. He's expressed how much he loves it. So I definitely love that for the Cubs. I know a team like the Dodgers are probably kicking themselves right now. But you see that and you say, I wonder if Shohei Ohtani might hinder that conversation. Where Shohei goes, Yamamoto might go type scenario. You know what I mean? But it's going to be interesting nonetheless. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to get too deep in the Yamamoto stuff just because I think it's been very quiet on what the market might be for him. There's some people saying $200 million. There's some people saying 250, 130, 150, who knows, 170. We're going to take that day by day. The more speculations and the more reports that we have coming out, we're going to continue to cover it. But as of right now, my number one option out of Japan is without a doubt Shohei Ohtani. Yamamoto would be amazing as well. Don't get it twisted. But, I'm really focusing on Shohei right now because this is a guy that in 2025, I mean, it's a guy that's going to be the 2, 3, or maybe even the 1, depending on Justin Steele's development. On your pitching rotation and the face of the franchise. I mean, it's going to be absolutely crazy. Now, I'll hate myself because ticket prices will be out of this world. But nonetheless, man, I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. But as for the bullpen, there's a couple guys I have on this list because I saw a couple people asking the question, who do we have on the bullpen? Who do you think should be guys that we go after? For me personally, Josh Hader. We already got Craig Counsell, so we might as well bring in the Hadeski. We might as well bring in the guy who every time I see this man take the mound, I hate it. I hate it so much because Josh Hader is an absolute monster. To have them alongside guys like Adbert Alzolay, to have him alongside other people in this bullpen, I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, That's really where I'm at. Aroldis Chapman, I'm not against bringing back. I think it'd be very interesting. And now a two-time World Series champion after winning with the Texas Rangers. It would be really cool to see him there. Got my guy Tuna in the comments right here. He said, Luka Doncic, baby. That's the MVP. Shout out to my boy Tuna. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what could potentially happen this offseason for the Chicago Cubs. Obviously, bringing in Japanese stars, Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, etc., will be the main focus. But you also have other understandings. Like, here's me, right? Perfect world. The perfect world is the Chicago Cubs get Shohei Ohtani. After that, they could sign me for all I care. As long as you get Shohei, you have had a successful offseason. And you brought in Craig Counsell, one of the best managers in baseball. Perfect. Love it. Chef's kiss. But if you can't, the perfect scenario on my sheet right here that I have, I think you have a real conversation about filling needs. Now, you obviously give Shohei Ohtani over $350, $400 million. So if you're not going to be able to do that, then you spend that money elsewhere. You re-sign Cody Bellinger. Put him at first base. You have Pete Crow Armstrong in center. Ian Happ in left. I think that's great. Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, etc. at some point will probably be in right field, and you probably DH a guy like Seiya Suzuki. Who knows? Or bench. I don't know. I really don't know. We got Shohei Ohtani, what that means for a guy like Seiya Suzuki, but especially with the pipeline that we have. But or Ian Happ. But if you bring in Cody Bellinger, I'm a big believer in bringing in Matt Chapman. Bring in 2 Gold Glove winners. You bring in a guy who is hungry for World Series experience, for a taste of a playoff victory. I mean, the A's haven't won in a long time, and the Blue Jays didn't meet expectations. Matt Chapman wants to win, man. He's 30 years old. It's time to get after it. So you bring in Cody Bellinger, you bring in Matt Chapman, you bring in Josh Hader, and I think you call it an offseason, to be honest. I mean, I think that's really the big pillars there. I think you bring in those 3 if you can't bring in a guy like Shohei Ohtani. But you guys let me know in the comments below what you think. This is going to be a very shorter episode tonight because we're going to be going live all day tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, I'll check you guys out on the next one. Hit that follow button if you haven't already because we're going to be talking Cubs baseball all off season long. I appreciate you guys for listening to Mike on the Mic. You can check me out on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook at theshy.kid, or you can go on YouTube and Spotify right now and look up Mike on the Mic podcast. Until next time, stay beautiful. Peace.
I love you.